Hi, this is Gurdwara Singh, and you're listening to my Thick Accent podcast. So, before I introduce my guest today, I want you guys to guess the city she's from. I'll give you all a hint. When we spoke for the first time, one of the topics we discussed was kulche chole. Yes, the famous food of the city. I'm sure many of you have guessed it by now. So she moved from Amritsar, Punjab, which is also my hometown, to Canada in 2019 to study Masters in Management from one of the top business schools in Canada, Schulich School of Business. Considering how overwhelming, frustrating, confusing, and time consuming the whole application process was, she decided to lend a helping hand to the aspiring students and started her own education consulting firm, Collegiado. Let's hear more from her about her journey from looking for an expert to becoming one. Please welcome Bani Singh.
Thank you, Gurasis, for such a lovely introduction. And yes, I do miss the kulche chole. And anyone who has been to Amritsar, I think they would have definitely tried those.
Okay, so Bani, before we talk about Bani Abroad, which is also your YouTube channel and of course your Instagram handle, I want to know about Bani India. What were you doing before you moved? What were you pursuing? And how was it like growing up in Amritsar?
So, as you know, Amritsar is a small town, not one of the metropolitan cities. My upbringing was quite normal,
Hmm.
nothing fancy. The focus was on academics, and luckily, I happened to be good at it. So, it was a normal life growing up, and then the actual confusion started when I was in my 10th grade what to pursue further, medical, non medical. I was at a crossroad, and then for some reason, I decided that I will pursue non medical because I had a lot of interest in maths. So that was it. Then I went for my bachelor's to Chandigarh. I pursued my engineering. And that's when I figured out that the core technical part of engineering is not for me. I don't
Hmm.
like being in front of the machinery, playing with all those tools. And I explored a lot of extracurricular activities. Undergrad for me was just discovering myself, seeing what I'm good at, participating in whatever came my way, be it an NGO, be it the literary club. So I got to know that that's what I really love doing, and I can use my skills to the best advantage in a management position or a role. So that's when I got to know about MIM, and that's how my journey to Canada began.
So you have always talked about the overwhelming process you had, the whole application process, spending hours on the internet. Tell us about that time.
Oh, where do I start? So I did say that MIM, but before that, I was of the opinion that I'll pursue
Hmm.
MBA because in India you can pursue it right after your bachelor's. But I always had this childhood dream that I want to study abroad. Don't ask me why. It's just random moments that get inserted,
Sure.
right? That you want that world exposure, you want to interact with people from different nationalities. Maybe deep down that was the reason. So then I came to know that MBA, for you to study that abroad, you need at least 2, 3 years of work experience. And then I was like, oh God, what to do now? Before that, I also had this confusion. Should I go for civil services? Should I be in India or should I move abroad? But then I thought MIM, MBA would be a better option. That's when I researched more and I got to know that MIM would be the perfect degree for me since I did not have any work experience. And the biggest struggle initially was to choose the country. My initial preferences were Europe and US. Europe is where MIM originated. US, just because of the appeal, the superpower. So I did not have Canada even at the back of my mind back then
Really?
because I was one of those stupid people who said that Canada, everyone goes to Canada. I don't want to be average. I want to be special, right? I want to go to a special country, which in my head was Europe or US. Then I had these talks with people who are based in Europe, who are based in US, like some of my mom's colleagues, children who have been settled there since a long time. And then I got to know about the reality. So US, I got to know about the immigration system and how it just depends on luck. You can't do anything within your control because you can't control the lottery system.
Absolutely.
And the degree that I was going to pursue, most of the universities did not consider that as a STEM degree. And if you don't do a STEM degree, you don't get that 3 year extension for your work permit. So that was a big no. Europe, just because of the immigration concerns and the language barrier, I opted out of that as well. And then I thought, what's the long term vision? My parents can be in that country. I can be stress free about the entire process and just focus on my career, my goals. And that's where Canada came in. My parents were very disheartened because they were also of the opinion that I'll go to US or maybe Europe. And then they said that you do have the aptitude. Why don't you go to US? Like, a lot of people are saying that she deserves to go to US. And then I explained them that this is the logical reason. And now they say that yes, that indeed was a good decision. So everything is fine now.
This does happen that Canada makes things so easier. It's so easy to immigrate that you end up choosing Canada as one of the options. But in your case, Bani, you were also selected. You also got admitted into University of Waterloo and University of Texas. So, what was something that stood out for the Schulich School of Business? Why that?
That's a good question. So, University of Texas, that just was out of the picture because it was located in US. Then between Waterloo and Schulich, again, I talked to people because I do believe that if you are going to do something, then talk to the people who have already done that to get the accurate picture, because there's a lot of false information on the Google. Back then,
Yeah.
when I was researching, I read that the average salary after MIM is like on some website 120, 130K. And that's for someone who has 0 year of experience, because MIM is specifically for people from 0 to 2 years of experience. And I was like, oh wow, the degree is around 50K. I'm going to get a 130K job. That's amazing. This is a good ROI, right?
Clearly
But
misleading.
then, yeah, that's true. So that's one of the reasons I started Collegiado. We can talk about it later. But then Waterloo versus Schulich. So Waterloo is more of an engineering school, right? So the curriculum was also technical, although there are a lot of electives, so you can tailor it according to what you want out of that.
Okay.
But for me, I was hell bent on the B school education, and that's where Schulich came in, and I chose that.
So now you are in Canada, you are in the Schulich School of Business. So, how was your first day, Bani? I always ask my guests to tell me what was going on in their mind. And if I'm not wrong, your first day was August 31st, 2019, right? So, tell me what was going on in your mind, and how were you feeling?
I was super excited because this decision wasn't thrust on me that you just go abroad, you make your life there. I actually wanted to do that. I was super excited. I remember getting out of Pearson, and the vibe that felt completely different. It was a vibe of hope, I would say. It's not that in India I wouldn't have done well. It's just that because I was so excited about it and I knew that I wanted that international exposure. And my dad's friend's mom came to pick me up because
Okay.
apparently, despite being a Punjabi, I didn't have any close relatives or friends here, which came as a shock to me initially. And then we were
Neither did
taken.
I. It's okay.
Yeah,
Neither did I.
right. So all that myth that was shattered. So she's a lovely lady, and I felt at home. I remember the first dish that I had was parante because they had made parante. It was breakfast time, I believe, and her house was also really beautiful. So just the outskirts as well, all greenery, open skies, and in Canada, the sunset, that's really beautiful. So I remember when I used to come back from Schulich, I had to take a bus and then walk, like a subway bus and then walk. So the time that I spent walking, I just used to look at the sky, admire the beauty. So I would say it was a true honeymoon period. The first few days, I was really happy. Yeah, I used to think that why do people feel homesick? I'm so happy. So that was just for the initial period.
Okay, and I think I've got one of the best answers to this question. You said I got the vibe of hope.
Mm,
I love that. So, Bunny, in one of your videos, you talked about the expectations when people are sitting seven seas away
mm,
and they have this generic view of Canada. And but when they land here, things are different.
mm.
So, was there something that you were not prepared of and you came across here?
It was just for me in the initial period, the difficulty wasn't finding a home that I would like, a place to live. So I knew
Hmm.
that living at my aunt's place, that was just for a few days. I had to figure my accommodation because then I had to look for my part time job accordingly, depending on where I live. And my
Yeah.
first preference was to live on campus, but then there was no availability because there are limited slots. And I started searching. I remember going alone to areas I didn't even know because that was my first time. And I used to think to myself, oh, if I were in India, I would have so many friends who would have said that, Pani, yes, let's go search an apartment for you. But here I'm going all alone, going to areas where I feel that I won't like living here. I remember I went to one apartment, I forgot which area was it. One of my classmates suggested that she also lives nearby, so there's some accommodation, I can check that out. I went there, I remember I called back home once I came back that yes, the budget is fine, the people are fine. It was a Gujarati lady, but then I don't like the vibe of the place. So by vibe, I mean just that it was very isolated and just the structure, the look of that. So I thought that that's not the place for me. And it's not that I am a person who throws tantrums and I want that perfect condition to live in. It's just how I felt that time. Luckily, after that, I saw a post on my York University of Campus Housing group, Facebook group, that there's someone who wants to sublet their on campus apartment. I was super happy. I contacted her that I want this. And then my aunt's son, they took me over to see that place, and I liked that. And it wasn't even a room. I was living in a living room, but it was big enough
Okay.
and there was privacy. The girl was nice. So you can imagine, I chose not to live in a room because the area wasn't that good, not from safety perspective, just the vibe and my mental mindset there. And I was comfortable living in a living room because I thought that there are two advantages to it. One is that it's on campus, no transportation cost. The second thing, which turned out to be very important, was that I was near my classmates. So there was no
Mhm.
difficulty in the sense of making friends because I knew that if I wanted some help, I could just go down the elevator, go to their apartment, and just sit down with them if I'm feeling homesick or something. And that really turned out to be a good decision.
Absolutely. And if I'm actually the same person. For me, I'm all vibes. If I'm not feeling connected to a place, I will not stay at that. And it has happened with me also. I have checked like number of places before I actually got settled into something. So I absolutely know from where you are coming from.
Right.
So talking about the school, Bani, what are some of the observations you had or differences that you saw in the school comparing it to India or the institutions that you have attended before this?
That's a good question. So, one thing that stood out to me was that people were not afraid to argue with the professors, not in a bad way, but
Mm.
just putting their opinions across that, hi, professor, yes, do you think like that? But I feel that this is how it's supposed to be. Or even countering with professors on assignments that, we are getting a lot of assignments and this is not at all fair that you are doing this to us. So back in India, yes, we could talk like that about the assignments, but the way of delivery and just in the classroom, talking to someone as a fully grown adult, talking to another adult. So that was a difference that I did see because in India, especially the institutions that I have attended, it wasn't like that. So that was one thing. The other thing, just in general, the education system, I believe it's more of putting theory into practice because we used to get a lot of assignments especially group projects as well. Because anyway, when we are going to go in the corporate world, it's all about working within teams
Exactly.
and how you can build a good team and achieve a vision together. So that taught me a lot about handling conflicts and getting work done from other people, because there are freeloaders in every group. So I feel that in India, all we used to do was, even for an assignment, it was just copy paste from Google. Maybe there are some kids who didn't do that, but I was the one who used to do that. So just putting that across. But here, you have to think about it. If you like, strategy was one subject, and we had this topic, blue ocean strategy, which is differentiating your
Hmm.
company, and we had to build a business model for an existing company and see how we can translate from red ocean to blue ocean. And that really makes you think, because it's not that you can just copy paste some stuff from Google, paraphrase it, and that's it. You have to think about the business model, about what are going to be the pros and cons. And I feel that way the education system makes you think rather than just learn and maybe not implement it later.
And also, the another thing is that you cannot just study overnight and pass an exam. You have to keep putting
Hmm.
effort, like since the day one, right?
That's true. And I believe consistency is what makes you retain, and it's not that you are cramming up everything at the last moment and it's just you vomiting out on the exam day.
So, another question that always comes up when deciding for a program is, should we go for a college or should we go for a university? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, this is one of the trickiest questions that you have asked, and a lot of people do ask me
Yeah.
that daily. There's no one answer to it, obviously. But I do want to put this point forth that the education system and the job market here in Canada is completely different when you compare it to India. I'm from B school, so I'll just take an example of the B school. So in India, if you get into one of the IIMs, you know that your life is sorted in a way that this is going to be your salary range after you graduate. These are the companies that you can probably get placed in because of the campus recruitment.
Hmm.
So you do have a fair idea about where you will end in. And the other thing is, even if you don't have any experience, you can get the position of a manager in India. And I also had this opinion that I'll do Master of Management, then I can get roles which maybe people who haven't done a master's, they are not entitled to. But that's completely not the case. Here, getting a job depends on your skill set more than it depends on the reputation of the university that you attend. So I would say if you're living in India, you do have a good bachelor's, like a technical and a specialized one, and then you do have a good company on your resume,
Hmm.
and your career is in demand in Canada, then even if you go for a PG diploma, that's fine, because eventually when someone is going to recruit you, they're going to see how well you can perform that job, and that would depend on the experience, the skills that you bring, rather than the university. Now, in no way I'm saying that the university reputation is not better than a college. Definitely it is. It's just that some people blindly think that doing an MBA is the best option for them. And what pains me is that MBA is around 130K at the top B schools in Canada. So if you can get the same or similar ROI by investing one third or one fourth of the tuition fee and get the same result, then why not? Because most of the people don't come from wealthy families for
Exactly.
who 60 70 lakh is not a substantial amount. So don't go for a university just because you think that it's more prestigious. Go for it if you feel that the experience that you have and then the education that you will get the will be worth the ROI. So the best way to analyze a framework would be that you have this set of funds. What is the best utilization of the funds? It can be that you invest some of those in your PG diploma and some of those in a business or something else if you have dreams like that.
Hmm.
So have a subjective approach rather than just what you are hearing sitting in India, because the information is not complete unless you see what's the reality here.
Absolutely. You said it right that it's very subjective. It depends upon individual situations and the ultimate goals that where they really want to go into, and skills does
Mm,
play a big role. And talking about the
Yeah.
skills, so currently, Bani, you're working as a project leader in Apotex, which is a pharmaceutical manufacturing company. Before all this, you have worked at Toys R Us, you have worked at Water Bagel, and of course the famous Tim Hortons, which was in fact your very first part-time job during your studies,
Yeah.
and it took you like a couple of months to land that. So tell me about
Right.
the hiring process or the perks you were getting, or how was the overall experience in general working there?
Sure. I would definitely recommend everyone who's listening to this not to join Tim Hortons, not because the work culture is bad. It's just that you have to put in a lot of work and it gets physically draining, especially at my store because it was on campus. There was a huge queue of people. You couldn't even catch a breath because most of the times for me it was morning shift and that was the busiest time.
Wow.
So it was like you pouring the coffee, you emptying the containers, and like just working like a robo. But that was fine. I think what made it bearable was the team that I had, the people who were along with me. They were very supportive. My manager used to say that, Bani, faster, faster. And I'm like, how fast can I go beyond this? But then I took that
Yeah.
as a challenge because, of course, because of the huge queue, we had to operate at amazingly fast rate. So that was my first experience and experience of landing a job. I think I wasn't very strategic with that. So one tip for everyone listening, if you can learn from my mistakes, is that I used to apply online. I also sent out my resumes, but there are some tips which I have learned over time from various YouTube videos that I've seen. You can call the place before going there to see if there's any availability because no one here is going to say to your face, sorry, we're not hiring. They're just going to say, oh, yeah, give me your resume, we'll see. So that's your resume and time and effort getting wasted. And the other thing is, I was just focused within, I believe, a 2 kilometer radius. For Indeed, I used to apply to random places as well. But if I had known back then that I can take a subway, I can go to downtown, maybe on the weekends, because here there are so many restaurants, so many retail stores. So the probability of me getting a job faster would have been higher then.
So before also you got your very first job in your industry, you applied to hundreds of jobs and reached out to so many people on LinkedIn just to know about the industry. and and the whole process can absolutely shatter you when you are just bombarded with those automatic rejection emails with no feedback whatsoever, and on top of that the PR clock is ticking. So
Yeah, especially that it was a 1 year degree,
oh
right?
my God, absolutely. So, Bunny, what advice or suggestion would you like to give to all the immigrants who are currently in the same boat right now?
So I would say that the thing that helped me the most was just my optimism. Back in India, also, when I was doing the research about the program, or in general, coming to Canada, coming for a master's without any work experience, a lot of people told me that, don't come. Yeah, already getting a job is difficult, and if you don't have any experience to back it up, then it makes things worse. But inherently, I'm a very positive person. Sometimes it can be a bad
Of
thing though,
course.
but I'm just saying what helped me in this thing. So I was like, I'll make it work. I believed in myself. And then I came here. I started applying for jobs. One mistake that I did was that I started applying to full time corporate roles pretty late. I should have started applying 3 months before I graduate. That's what I keep telling people, start applying 3 months before you graduate because the process takes time, right? So, why I did not apply that, I think that no one knows, is because I was still searching for a part time job to sustain my living expenses because my degree was really expensive. I didn't want that I asked more money for my parents. Like, I repaid that loan. It's not that that was onto them, but for that time, right? So, because of the pandemic, the Tim Hortons that I used to work at that shut down, and after that, I was one of those people who were really scared to go outside of the house because of the pandemic. And once my fear started to alleviate, then I thought to myself that yes, now it's the time, and even my funds are getting exhausted. So now, if I don't work, I will have to ask for money, which I didn't want to. So I started applying again. Then I even remember that I went to Toys R Us, and the uncle there, he was a Sri Lankan, I believe. So he told me that me and my friend, so we both went there, that he really likes us. He would want to give us this opportunity, but unless we don't have a work permit, he can't give us that job because it's full time hours only. So we were so heartbroken, but we just kept persisting. Then I got a job at Water Bagel. That was part time. I worked there just for a few days. Then I got my completion letter. And in Canada, legally, you can't work
Hmm.
unless you apply for a work permit once you have completed your studies. So again, I didn't apply for a work permit earlier because I would have then exhausted my days, and I could have utilized that for my corporate role. So until and unless I was sure that I am going to get a part-time role which where I can work full-time hours. So it was just the reference of that uncle who referred us to another store. He said that I'm going to leave this, but there's a friend who runs another store. So this was through a referral then, and I remember this was hilarious. So in the interview he was asking, where do you see yourself in the next 2 3 years at Toys R Us? And of course, I couldn't say, right, that I'm just going to go away once my corporate job comes in. So I then, because it's also his business, right? He doesn't want that I work there for a month and then
Of
leave,
course.
which apparently did happen. But I was clear in the sense that it's the pandemic. A lot of people are not getting jobs. So the probability of me getting a job right now is low. So I will be working here for some time. And post that, I was applying for the corporate roles. I did get in. So I gave them the full visibility to that, and I gave them the adequate notice period. So that was one of the best part-time jobs that I worked at. One, it was retail, so I really loved talking to customers. The other thing was we could have time to converse with the customers. It was not a Tim Hortons order go, that's it. So that, and the footfall wasn't that much at that time, so that was good for me, and the people there were so caring, just your co-workers. So I would say that out of all the part-time jobs that I worked at, that was the best one. So if anyone is looking out for a part-time job, if an Toys R Us is near them, definitely give it a try.
Could you also, Bani, please tell us about the full time role, the corporate role? How did you get that?
Sure. So I don't even remember where I had applied for that because I used to apply on LinkedIn Indeed through my Schulich handshake portal that we had for career. And I did get an interview call. I was so happy, and then I wanted to give it my best. So I prepared for that. I talked to a few people working at
Okay.
Apotex, and apparently they were working in the same department. So I got to know about a few insights about the company in general. So I think that also helped. And the other thing is, one of the persons that I connected with was present in my third interview. So there were three interview rounds. One with the HR, one with the HR and the manager, and then one with the team that I was going to collaborate with. So he was present in one of the third rounds, and I'm like, oh wow. So I think just reaching out, showing the zeal to join the role, that must have helped a little bit, right? I then
100%.
asked him, thank you so much. If you put in a good word, and he said, no, that wasn't like that. It's just that the team liked you. So I'm like, okay, so that's fine. But his insights definitely helped me in the interview. So I would say that if you do have an interview and you can catch hold of someone working there, you can leverage a lot of insights which you can put across in the interview, and just telling that you have had a word with some of the team members earlier, that also shows your interest.
That's awesome. I'm sure those insights that you got from the person who end up interviewing you has played a vital role in helping you land this job.
I just want to highlight one thing which I think can be pretty useful regarding the corporate job search.
Mhm.
You were mentioning about the rejection emails,
Yeah.
right, the automated ones. For some reason, they never took me down. I just treated it as another spam email. It's not that I developed that mindset,
Hmm.
that was inherent, that it's fine. I've talked to people. We have to apply to a number of jobs until we get in. So I don't have to give up. That's the key. So that didn't phase me mentally. So that also helped me persist throughout the process without getting demotivated, because I knew what was the reality. It wasn't that you apply for two jobs and you get it. I knew that I had to apply to tons and then I'll get it. And that's what happened. So just having the realistic expectation and a positive mindset and just talking to people, working on your skills, that helps a lot.
Absolutely. I've said this so many times on the podcast that things does fall in place. I know there are good and bad days, and finding a job itself is a job, but things does fall in place. Just be patient and continue doing your thing. But I would also like you to tell us about the job scams, where there are multiple jobs and very tempting offers, but they're
Hmm.
not really the real ones.
Yes, that's an important question because I did encounter that. Fortunately, I did not fall prey to that. So when I was looking for the part-time roles, I came across this thing on Indeed that, $800 per week. I'm like, wow, if I work at minimum wage, I'm going to get at most $1,000 after a month. And this guy is going to pay me $800. And that was the first that type of role that I encountered. So I wasn't that skeptical. So I just filled in the application, and then the guy did reach out to me. And when he started saying that, we'll give you printers and you have to deposit this
Oh.
cash, there should be some kind
Hmm.
of a machine near you. Then I thought that this is something fishy. I researched online that, is this a scam? And clearly, all the results on Google showed that don't fall prey to this. And then I just blocked this number. But I think a few people do fall prey to that because they feel that the salary is so good and they will just go for it. But it's just that the legal procedure is then going to fall all back on you because it's your account that is converting black money to white money.
Yes, students are so vulnerable at that stage that they really don't have any other choice but to fall for all these. And thank you so much for sharing all this, Bani. And to all the listeners, Bani has made a detailed video about four other scams that has happened in Canada. I highly recommend you all to please watch it. The link can be found in the show notes. So now, Bunny, I want to discuss about a few other things that people who are yet to come to Canada might not be aware of. And the first thing is the street names. And I'm sure you do have an anecdote to share about that. Tell us about that.
Definitely an anecdote where I cried. So,
Just like all of
how
us, no worries.
right. So how the naming convention works here is that there's this entire street and then there are intersections, right? So you don't have to go by the street name, but let's say Bay at Young. So two street names will give you the exact location. So I was under the impression that in India, right, what we have that it's medical enclave, it's this, that. So ironically for that it was the naming convention even in the bus route. So the moment that name was highlighted on the screen, I pressed stop and then I went out later to realize that it's the entire street, and then I had to get on another junction. So I used to live in Mississauga. That was the first month that I used to live with my aunt, and the bus frequency wasn't that much. So I was just figuring out that, oh shit, this is not the place where I was supposed to drop at. And then I waited for another bus. It took about 10-15 minutes, I believe. And I was crying. And I believe that when you cry, it's not just that one thing, it's the amalgamation of all the things that you're encountering. So that was the
Exactly.
frustration of not finding a house, um, just being in a new country and trying to, build your friendships here. There's not a support system.
Mhm.
So all of that came down, I guess, at that moment. And then finally the other bus came. I took that, I went home, and then auntie, she just told me that you could have called me. I said, no, it's okay. You are already doing so much. But after that, I was very particular. But still, to date, I live in downtown, so it's very convenient for me now because I know of the areas and it's not that confusing. And the bus service, I do have a bike share, so that's not a problem. But the problem is when I go outside, let's say Vaughan, Brampton. Till date, please, if anyone can DM me about this, I would be super grateful. I don't know. which side of the road should I stand at? Because one day I remember I went to one to meet someone.
Or the east and west, the north and south part, right?
Yes, right. So the bus service that was like 20-25 minutes after the frequency. And I stood at one direction and then I saw the buses passing through the other direction. And then I went there, waited for 20 minutes. I even asked one random person, local, standing there, how do you figure this out? Because I was so frustrated and I thought that I need to learn this right now because this can also happen in the future. And the guy, he said, oh, I just know now. Okay,
What?
that's not the right answer.
Thank you
But
for your help.
then, yeah, definitely. So that was the story. Now I don't go to those faraway places by bus, but still, if I have to go, I'll still be confused. So if anyone can help me with that.
It can get challenging, and me being in Montreal, everything is in French.
Hmm.
It's written something else, but they are saying something else, and I have literally missed so many buses. I cannot even mention the number.
Yeah.
And that would be so embarrassing. But yes, that has happened with me as well. Another thing, Bani, you talk so much about safety in your videos. I have seen a number of your videos talking about that, and you always say you recommend researching about the area one chooses to live.
Hmm.
Why is that?
Yeah, so when I came to York University, a lot of people told us that don't be near Jane and Finch, don't be near some pockets of the village. So I got to know that it's not that Canada is 100% safe. There are crimes happening everywhere. So it's just that you use your discretion and research. So that's why I recommend that whenever you're going to a province, there are some good areas, bad areas. So just be mindful of those and then don't go near the bad ones. That will help a lot because you never know, right?
Exactly. Another annoying thing about Canada, okay, we love Canada, but just the thing is that everything closes by 5 or 6 p.m. And that can be so annoying.
Yeah, when I used to live in York University, it was all so quiet. I remember when I used to come from a part-time job at Toys R Us, it was around 9, 10, and there were hardly people walking on the street. Nowadays, it's completely different because I live in downtown here. Even if you come home at around 2 a.m. in the morning, there are a lot of people. So that way, I feel that this is more vibrant. But definitely, if you're living in the suburbs, you are hardly going to see a lot of people after 8 9 p.m. because businesses are shut down, people are at their homes, so especially in winters.
Yes, the holidays is like even worse. Everybody prefers to stay at home with their families, and they prioritize their families and the
Yeah,
and the occasion rather than really opening the shops, which is absolutely different from India, where everything is
right.
more happening and bright and chirpy, and too much is happening during the holiday season.
Yeah, let's say if it's Diwali in India, you'll see all the hustle
Exactly.
bustle. But if it's New Year, Christmas here, because it's an official holiday and every store is closed down, so you will be at a loss where to buy this specific stuff if you haven't planned ahead. So just be mindful about that.
Yeah, and that's also the time where you miss your family the most, right? Because there's not enough places to go, and you do miss your loved ones. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on the expensive data plans, Bonnie?
Oh, okay. So that I feel that is ridiculous, but obviously it's because of the structure that Canada has. The data plans coming from India, where Geo used to give you, I believe, 1 GB data every day, and that at
Yeah,
I guess 2.99. I don't remember the price, but it was cheap. And here, 40 $50, that's quite normal. So yeah, that's a big difference.
exactly. I think when I came, I just stumbled upon this weird network, and I got like 1 GB for the whole month. And that was
Right.
also the time when I was looking for accommodation and trying to connect Wi-Fi here and there, and I was just not that successful.
True, 1 GB is less for 1 month.
Okay, Bani, let's pivot towards your education consulting firm, Collegiado. Tell me, when did you start it? What was the thought behind it? And what are the services available for the students?
Sure. So, to tell you what it exactly is, it's an end to end university application process where I help prospective students shortlist universities based on their profile, then work on the application components. Universities have a lot of components: resume, SOP, the LORs, and even some of the universities have interviews and scholarship essays. So, there's a lot that goes in. And I feel that if we don't have that insight, it's yes, your English might be really good, but then the
Mhm.
message that you have to put across that makes all the difference, whether it's something which everyone is doing or if you are standing apart, if you are talking about the stories of impact. So that makes a lot of difference. That's what I do through this. And fortunately, the success rate is pretty high. That gives me so much happiness when I see people getting into their dream university, because it's right now it's basically just for masters. Why? Because I have pursued my masters, I know the ins and outs. So unless and until I have done the research for bachelors for other countries, I wouldn't want to play with someone's life and just give them the information that everyone has access to on the internet, because the picture is completely different when you go to that specific bachelor's program, or let's say to another country. So that's about the service. Now, how did it come into picture is the process that I had to go through in India. I was so confused. I would have definitely gave it anything to have, let's say, a consultation session with someone who has the knowledge of that particular program of masters in general, because
Mhm.
most of the companies I feel in India are commission based companies. They don't charge anything from the student because they are getting a commission from the college because of the tie ups. And when I went to these consulting agencies in India, when I said MIM, most of the people just had no clue about the degree. And then some of the people did say, "Don't go for this. It's not relevant. You are an engineer now. You are going to a B school." And they didn't even know the simple thing that that degree is specifically for non-business graduates, and that's what I could highlight in the visa SOP later to convince the immigration officer as well. So I thought that there's not a lot of awareness on the master's side. Yes, definitely a lot of consulting agencies who can get you into PG diplomas. So I saw that gap. That's why I started Collegiado, and I feel really grateful that I can serve a lot of people through that, just to make their journey easier and just so that they don't fall into the pitfalls of just the false Google advertisements, because everything is beautiful on Google. All the ROIs, those are really good and misleading. So I think I just help them see what's the reality and give them the best shot at the application.
You were saying this, and this reminds me of one of the questions someone asked in your Q&A session on Instagram. And he or she might be your current client, and they said, "Sab ho jayega na?" And that really gives like a picture of the anxiety and the stress one goes through, and that's where the people like you come in, who lend that helping hand to them
Mhm.
and guide them and tell them the first hand experience that you have had and tell them how the process could be. And I also want to mention here
Mhm.
that Bani and the team has helped students get accepted into universities like Carleton, University of Waterloo, Dalhousie University, Queen's University, of course, Schulich School of Business, and many more. And you can book a one-to-one call with Bani. The link is in the show notes.
Thank you so much, Gurasis, for highlighting that.
So now we are in the favorite section of the show. It's called the final MTA talk. Basically, I'm going to ask you a question. You can answer them in one word or a sentence or however you feel like. The idea is just to know more about Bani. Okay.
Mhm.
So, first thing, the classic question: what advice would you like to give to Bani, who is in the initial months of landing in Canada?
I would say be strategic about part-time jobs, because that's where I messed up. So, a few action steps that you can take is calling in advance to know if there's any vacancy, going to regions where there are a lot of clusters of restaurants, like downtown, or let's say you're living in Brampton as well. Brampton, I guess, has that complex. Mississauga has Square One. So, you will see a lot of retail stores going to malls. So, just not restricting yourself to the area that you live.
Okay. Next is one Punjabi superstition you have been hearing whole your life and you still follow. If you do.
Oh. The thing is, I don't follow a lot of superstitions. I'm so proud of that for my family, because I've encountered black cats crossing me, and no one said something that, do this to counter that.
Yeah.
So I feel that way. Let me remember, there must be something.
Hey you. Meanwhile, Bani is thinking of the superstitions she may or may not follow. I request you to please subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet. And if you already have, first of all, thank you. And I'll really, really appreciate if you can leave me a comment if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or a rating if you're listening on Spotify. Or you can also share your feedback by writing to us at hello@mythicaccent.com.
So Guru Sis gave me 1 minute to think about it. I even asked him about the superstitions, but fortunately or unfortunately, I don't fall prey to any of these. I am not particular about not washing my hair on Tuesdays or Thursdays. I'm a vegetarian, so that doesn't bother me that I shouldn't eat meat on these specific days. Not sneezing, like not leaving home if someone sneezes. So no, nothing is applicable. So yeah, I don't fall prey to any of these.
Yes, neither should anybody. If you could outsource one of your daily chores, Bani, what would it be?
Interesting. So this is debatable. The thing is, I really like cooking, but because my schedule right now is very hectic because I'm managing multiple things, so sometimes cooking feels like I could have worked on my business and not have cooked, right? If I had someone who would cook me food and I could just eat it, that would give me so much more time. Like not so much more, but like just half an hour more, and that's also a lot some days. So, although I love cooking, I just feel that on super hectic days, I would really love it if I can get home cooked meal just served to me.
Exactly, that could be a challenge sometimes. So, are you an early bird or a night owl?
Oh, so I am an early bird nowadays because I wake up around 6 every day. I take the one-on-one consultation calls in the morning because most of my audience is
Mhm.
based in India, and for them to be available during my night time, that's not favorable, right? So I do that. Then, yeah, it's my office and all the other stuff. So I have to wake up early and I don't have any regrets about it. I actually enjoy that right now.
Okay. Now, if you could be any creature in the world, what would it be and why?
Wow, this is one question that I don't have to think about. That would be a butterfly. So
Oh.
yeah, I really love butterflies since my childhood. My brother used to chase those, like get them to sit them on the hand, and then I used to see that. I was so amazed by that, and then I got to know they are so papery. It's not as beautiful as it looks when you just hold them, but just despite that, I love that. I think why I love that is they are so free in the sense, so beautiful, so free,
Mm,
flying around.
interesting.
So that's one animal or an insect that I would want to be.
So, what's the first thing that you notice about somebody when you meet them?
Just how they treat other people or how they make other people feel, if they are living in their own head or if they actually care. So I believe that would be one thing.
So, if you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it would be?
It would be very traditional, some Punjabi dish itself, roti with some sabzi or dal, because I can eat that. I love pasta, I love pizza, but I don't think I can eat that for the rest of my life all day long.
Okay. And finally, describe Canada in one word.
I would say dreamland because a lot of people come to Canada with high hopes that their dreams will get fulfilled, and actually they are able to
Mm,
do that, most of the population, because here, even let's say if you are earning, doing a part-time job full time, you can live a decent enough life which you can't live in India. So yeah, that would be it, dreamland.
awesome. So those are all my questions. You guys can follow Bani on Instagram. Her handle is Bani_abroad. And do check out her YouTube channel. It's Bani Abroad. So on that note, thank you so much, Bani, for being on the show and adding value to my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me, Gracie. It was a pleasure.
Hey, listener, thank you for making it to the end. I highly appreciate you listening the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't as yet, and please share with your friends or anybody you think would like it. And like I always say, we encourage you to follow your heart, but also us on Instagram. The handle is mythicaccent. You can also leave us a review or write to us at hello@mythicaccent.com. So stay tuned and let's continue knowing each other beneath the accent.